Inspector Hammer?
Yes, I was wondering if I could take the witness into a dark room with some rubber hose just for a short time, Your Honor.
I object, Your Honor.
Okay, I'll use a lead pipe.
Who do you trust more, Ian? A judge or a lawyer?
The judge.
Why?
They're not being paid by somebody involved in the case.
Fair enough. How are you, you egg-sucking leech?
An egg-sucking leech. I'm fine, actually.
Yeah? I'm dreadful.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's wrong, Jenny?
Upset tummy.
Oh.
Yep, both ends.
Yeah? That's not ideal.
No, it's not at all. Getting over it, but yeah.
For that egg-sucking.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you can't really teach your granny how to do.
You can't, but you can do it with her.
You could.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's a phrase I never quite understood the origins of. You can't teach your granny to suck eggs.
No.
Do grannies know how to suck eggs?
Yes.
Why do they suck eggs?
Let's begin. Thoughts on this week's episode? Different?
Yes, I liked it better the second time I watched it
Did
than
you?
the first, definitely, yeah.
What do you pick up in some of the subtleties, some of the nuances?
No, I think it's just the characterisation. On the second watch, this episode's actually pretty decent.
There are some very fine moments.
Definitely. It's obviously stuck in a single location.
Certainly.
But, courtroom dramas work. They've been shown to work in the past.
I love a courtroom drama. What's your favourite courtroom drama?
Ooh. I do like a John Grisham. Now, they're not strictly courtroom because a lot of the stuff happens outside the court.
Of course.
But I liked Runaway Jury. I liked Time to Kill as well.
I think I've mentioned this to you before. I don't think you have seen it, but Fracture with Anthony Hopkins and Ryan Gosling
Right.
is a very good courtroom drama. You would enjoy it.
I might have seen it. I can't remember.
Give it a watch.
Okay.
I know you will like it. Anyway, Ian, this podcast is now in session. How do you wish to plead?
I wish to plead...
So can we have a summary justice?
I think most folk have turned this off. There's not really any point in me doing the summary.
Yeah, crack on.
In Jagged Sledge, our eponymous hero is on trial for the murder of a local crook, Hugo Victor. Witness testimony suggests Hammer had it in for his rival, and his defence falters. Video footage seems to show conclusively that Hammer fired the fatal shot, but everything may not be as it seems. All that is left to determine is whether Sledge will go down for the murder, or manufacture a miraculous escape.
Summary adjourned.
Overruled.
We begin in the precinct this week. Officer Daly is tying Trunk's tie for him, and he appears delighted. Why is that?
Yes, he's in a very good mood because Hammer is on trial for murder.
The notorious murder, as you mentioned, of Hugo Victor, a racketeer who has beat all of Sledge's previous raps.
I was trying to get the link. Obviously, his name's Victor Hugo backwards, the guy who wrote Les Mis, but I couldn't get any other connection to that.
I think it's just a play on the name.
Is it a play on the name?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Dory, however, she enters. She can't believe that Sledge would do such a thing, and reluctantly, both Trunk and Daly agree.
I wouldn't say reluctantly. I think what's happening at the start is Trunk's putting on a brave face because he's worried. And I think he genuinely doesn't think Hammer did it and he's concerned that he might get convicted.
No, that's a fair point. I'll accept that, yeah. Sustained.
Let's stop this.
Right now. So we head over to the courthouse, and outside we see a man being interviewed as he enters the court, and he admits that he believes that Sledge is indeed guilty. Who is he? Why is this bad news?
Well, it's Sledge's own lawyer. And that's a scene that will be familiar to anyone who watched Making a Murderer.
Oh, don't get started on that.
I think that Sledge and Brendan Dassey could share a few stories.
Throughout this episode, I think Sledge himself acts more professionally than most of the prosecution. In fact, the defence of Dassey.
Yeah, absolutely. And if folk haven't seen that, sure they should go and watch it. It's
definitely.
Really good.
Yeah. Sledge walks in next, and he responds to the reporter, Susie Shallow's, question about how he feels in typical fashion.
He does. He says he's upset because someone else got all the fun of killing the cheese ball and he gets the blame. And he tells her to go and cover a bake-off.
which is quite appropriate for 2016. I don't know about in the States, but Bake Off TV is huge in the UK at the moment.
I heard that Mary Berry's going to America with a series. There's an American version. I don't know if it started or if it's coming, but yeah.
Not watched a single episode, not my thing, but I know it's very popular.
Yeah, I watched the last couple of seasons. It's pretty good.
Did you?
Yeah.
Who was the winner?
Well, Nadia won it the previous year, and a girl from London whose name escapes me.
A Girl from London. Sounds like some sort of song, doesn't it?
I can't remember her name.
Yeah.
It'll come to me.
Inside the courtroom, Sledge is at first relaxed and unconcerned.
Yeah, he thinks he's getting off because obviously he's a cop and he's in court and the cops get off with things.
Yeah, there are judges are on the same team as the cops. He fears no judge, except
the one that he's got. There's no reason given, but he does fear her.
He then tries to use flattery.
He does.
What does he say?
Oh, he says she wears a very fetching shade of black. I do wonder the reference to cops getting off with things, if that's kind of a pointed comment. It's said flippantly, but I think it might be one of those.
I think so. I mean, even again, appropriately today, it's unusual for cops to be found guilty when there's a sort of 50-50 decision, certainly. Even more
when there's video evidence.
Yeah, even when I say when a 90-10 decision, yes.
Yeah.
Flattery doesn't work, so he suggests cash.
He's got no opportunity here, I don't think.
No. When asked how he pleads, he tells the judge that he never pleads. He doesn't usually even ask. Things get worse as he discovers that his lawyer wants him to plead guilty.
Yes, and then you can get him off on appeal and they'll sell the movie rights or make a musical.
Yeah, album deals, etc., etc. Sledge literally chases him out of the court.
He does, but it's okay because Dory says they can hire a replacement from the Safe Sledge Fund.
You can see Trunk trying to gesture to Dory that this isn't a good idea.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, they only raised $1.99.
It's a bit rough on Sledge, isn't it?
Yeah, but Trunk himself says he will entirely fund a lawyer. He'll lend him the whole amount of money.
Yeah, that's very reasonable of him,
Very
considering
generous.
that Sledge probably, on his salary, couldn't afford to pay it back. I mean, these things in the States, a murder trial could be hundreds of thousands. And if Sledge gets found guilty, I mean, how is he going to...
Absolutely, and I think that shows that Trunk doesn't really want Sledge to be convicted.
Yeah, I agree.
The jury turns out to be a pantomime audience.
Well, before we get to the jury, so did you mention there Sledge decides to represent himself?
Well, the jury's involved in that exchange, so Hammer makes a few different comments. He says he's going to represent himself and he gets oohs and ahs from the jury, and then he talks about his plea. He's going to plead not guilty, and they basically burst out laughing.
Not a good sign.
No.
Witness number 1 is called to the stand. Who is it?
It's R.C. Hugo.
Victor's son.
It's about R.C.
Very.
They ask him his relationship to the deceased, and did you get his response?
No, what was that?
He says, surviving son and professional playboy.
Yes. Touch of the Wayne Jennings there.
A little bit.
He describes Sledge as a gibbering homicidal maniac, I think.
Yeah, and Sledge chucks a glass at him.
He's not helping himself. He said, oops, it slipped. He then recounts his version of what happened when his dad was at the station after being arrested on a charge of jaywalking.
He does. We get a bit of a flashback.
Describe what we see in this flashback.
Well, Hugo Victor is getting out, having paid his bail.
Mm-hmm.
Sledge isn't happy, but he's told that's the law. They have to let him go when he pays his bail. And Hugo makes the mistake of making fun of Sledge's gun.
Calls it a little thing.
He does, and Sledge goes for him.
Mm-hmm.
He loses it.
Yeah, we have a bit of sort of slapstick as Sledge is swung around, knocking things over, knocking people over.
He's got an officer on his back.
Yeah.
It's all a little bit carnage, isn't it?
It all ends up with Victor telling Sledge that he will see him demoted to Cub Scout.
Sledge says, you just want to see me in shorts.
Yeah, quite a nice riposte. And Sledge vows to get him.
Yes, it's the last thing he does.
Mm-hmm. So we revert back to present day in the courtroom. And RC is Sledge's witness. And he has an unusual request that we heard at the top of the podcast.
Yes, he's not allowed to advance on that basis, so he has no questions at that time.
Witness 2. Who's this?
Mrs. Mandalay.
Who is?
She's the Irish housekeeper.
She is.
because at one point she shouts, "Faith and Begorra."
She is called, and as she tells her version of Sledge's meeting at Victor's home, we see two jury members begin their very public affair.
Well, yes, a guy in the back row swaps seats with a guy in the front row.
Yeah, they'd been flirting for a bit, and this progresses throughout the entire trial.
He's moved down in next to the seat next to the young lady that he's got his eye on.
So apparently Mrs. Manderley had shown Sledge into Victor's study, and then later on had heard an argument and a gunshot.
Yes.
She looked out of the window. What did she see?
Sledge leaving.
Driving away.
Yes. And the body, obviously, went in the room.
Of course. RC enters, and this is a flashback as well, obviously. He enters and checks the body before solemnly telling the housekeeper to cancel his father's golf appointment.
He does. It's now Sledge's turn to cross-examine.
Mrs. Manderley, how long did you work for Hugo Victor?
32 years.
32 years, that's a very long time. You must have liked him.
He was all right.
All right. I'd say you thought he was more than just all right. I'd say you loved him.
What?
In fact, you loved him enough to lie about who killed him. Ever since that first night when you met him and you were dancing in the chorus of the hula bar, you've been in love with him. It was a whirlwind romance. Then your beauty faded and you became the dried-up, frustrated old hag you are today. But your love burned ever brighter. So you took any job you could just to be near him, and you became his housekeeper. You may as well admit it. You were addicted to love. But then he got a new girl, a younger, a prettier girl than you. A girl who had a gun tattooed right on her... Well, anyway, she was cute. You couldn't stand it. You couldn't take it anymore, so you stood behind the study door and you waited until I left, and then you shot her in a fit of jealous rage. Now that's really how it happened, isn't it, Mrs. Manderley?
Pish posh and nonsense. Hugo was terrible in the sack, so I dumped him, but he always paid a good wage, so I stayed on. And that's the end of the story right there.
Aha. Well, it was worth a try. No further questions, Your Honor.
That cross-examination is at a high point, I believe.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I mean, obviously you couldn't see in the podcast, but you heard the smack. That was him catching RC Victor with a punch.
Yes, well, he's dancing around gyrating and asking the question in a very exaggerated form.
It was brilliant.
I enjoyed it.
And a couple of lines to a famous song in there as well.
Yes, Addicted to Love. He
Robert.
says, yeah, you might as well admit it, you're addicted to love, which is straight out the song. There's an odd turn of events now as the prosecution calls Hammer. I don't think they should be allowed to do that. The guy who's been charged is allowed to not give evidence, and if he is giving evidence, he should be giving evidence for the defence first.
Of course, but I don't think we'll judge this episode of Sledgehammer on the
They've not done their research!
post-procedural. So as you say, yeah, the prosecution calls Sledge himself, and he then describes his golf-themed encounter with Victor.
Yeah, as Sledge tells it, he was playing a series of phenomenal golf shots around the living room, ending with a shot off a statue into the hole, whilst he explains to Victor that he is going to put him away permanently if he doesn't stop what he's up to.
Correct. He reiterates that Victor was alive when he left,
Yes.
but the prosecutor then produces a CCTV video showing what?
Well, there's a couple of the jury members who still have no idea what it showed because they weren't paying any attention, were
Nope.
they?
They weren't.
More interested in one another.
Mm.
While that's going on, the CCTV has the entire incident basically from the doorway, and it shows Hammer leaving and then reaching back in with his arm and his gun and shooting Victor.
Very suspicious, I have to say.
It does look suspicious, but also a bit weird because the door shuts and then the arm's there as if the person was already inside the room.
On leaving court for recess, Sledge tells the reporter Susie that the video had not enough action but a great ending, and on his Hammer scale he gives it 4 bullets out of 5.
That's true. She asks him again what he thinks and he says he doesn't think that's what makes him a good cop.
He then walks away still holding onto the microphone and toppling over the cameraman.
That's the second time in this episode I think the cameraman's been knocked over accidentally by Sledge.
Sledge insists that he is innocent and has a terrific witness to testify next.
And Dory and Trunk together say, who are you going to call? Now this must be right around when Ghostbusters came out.
No, well after that.
86?
No, 84, the first Ghostbusters. The remake was what, 80... Not the remake, the sequel was 89.
This is in between, so
In
it's
between,
just a reference.
Yeah.
It's not a contemporary reference.
The witness, the terrific star witness, is Sledge. himself, and he does this with the aid of a tape recorder.
Testing one, two, testing one. Inspector Hammer, the court is well aware of your distinguished record of excellence.
Well, you're too kind to...
No, I mean it. But let's move on.
Yeah.
Inspector Hammer, Hugo Victor was let go on bail. Why was that?
Because of namby-pamby judges who insist on stupid little details like search warrants and incriminating evidence and conclusive proof and stuff like that.
Yes, I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah.
Captain, if he keeps playing this tape, it's gonna kill him.
I hope we get to hear side 2.
However, despite your frustration, you had no intention of killing Hugo Victor when you went to visit him. Is that true?
No way.
That's it, Hammer. I've heard enough.
It's
Let's
going
move
quite
on
well.
then
Turn
to
that damn
another
thing off.
arena
Well, let me
of
just
questioning.
fast forward to the good part here.
Can we just get this over with?
Oh,
Hawk breath.
that's extra stuff. Oh, I don't know how that got on there. I think I went too far.
You're telling me.
Listen. Well, that's not right, is it? Get off me! This dang machine!
Stop! Have you gone completely mad?
Don't worry, she's not talking to you, she's talking to me.
Who are you talking to?
No, this is just, I just had a...
Inspector Hammer,
What?
surrender your weapon.
We couldn't obviously see that, being that we're an audio medium, but he pulls his gun out on the tape machine when he can't get it to do what he wants, and that provokes a strong reaction from the court.
I love the thought of him cross-examining himself and some of the questions and the insults that
He
he
would
dished
throw
out.
himself, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
He calls Dory as his next witness, and we see her recollection of the same evening's event.
Yeah, she's initially reluctant to tell the jury exactly what Sledge said when he heard that Victor was being released. I don't think she thinks it will be in Hammer's favour.
No, but he knows what he's doing generally, and she recounts a tale of him wanting to manufacture evidence, just something small, like a body.
Yeah, we see his threat to get the miserable can of tuna.
Yes, I saw that one, if it's the last thing he does again.
At this point, Sledge realises the mistake he's made in telling Dory to be totally truthful and honest.
Tells her thanks for nothing, really.
Yeah, he physically has to remove the blabbermouth at this point.
He calls Trunk, who doesn't want to come to the stand at all.
No, he's of the same view, that he cannot be of any help if he has to be honest.
Yeah, and he asks Trunk if he, Hammer, has ever been violent or irrational, and he corrects his question.
How did he do that?
Well, he says without reason, and Trunk's still not keen to answer when Hammer fast forwards a little bit.
Yeah, he is asked to describe what happened after Sledge returned to the precinct from Victor's house.
Yes.
Trunk doesn't think this answer will help, but Sledge tells him to trust him, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Describe how that goes.
Well, we get a flashback again to Trunk's recollection. Hammer walks into Trunk's office and he's unusually happy.
Oh, he's in a brilliant mood, isn't he? He's like Mary Poppins.
He's absolutely beaming. And he explains that he's been to see Hugo and there is no problem anymore. Everything's been dealt with.
The phone rings immediately.
Yes, and it is Trunk finding out that Hugo is dead. And Hammer asks how he'd react.
And then it cuts back to the present day, and we see Trunk's reaction as he's shaking Sledge violently by the lapels.
Yeah, he does it both in the flashback and in the courtroom.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like the defence witnesses have gone very well.
No. It gets worse for
Yes.
Sledge. We then have a number of clips of Mayjoy, Officer Daly, and Norman Blades.
Yes, our good friend.
Yeah. Can we call him that?
Oh, we have to now. He's been on our forums and commented on one of the posts.
Yeah,
hasn't
he's
he?
on Twitter and the Sledgecast, Sledgehammer podcast forum.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So yeah, I think we can call him a very good, a very good friend of the podcast.
A friend of the show, that's right.
Yeah. In fact, if he ever wants to do a little voiceover,
He should get in touch.
That'd be
Anyway, you know, like all those other podcasts have at the start.
Yeah.
I'm whoever, and
Yeah.
that you're listening to,
I'm Kurt Paul. Yeah.
and you're listening to
Precisely.
Sledgecast. Just record it. Just record that and send it over. You don't need to, phone us or anything.
There'll be 3 sausage rolls and a fish finger in it for you.
Yes, or at least images of them.
Where are we?
Well, after Blades comes to the stand, he explains that it was a hard shot, dead centre, just like you always do. The bullet was from a .44 Magnum, just like you always carry. And we found a full set of prints that were exactly like yours.
It's going bad for Sledge.
Yeah, because the prosecution hadn't actually introduced any evidence.
No. The final witness is who?
Well, it's R.C. Victor again, which is unusual again procedurally, but we'll skip over that.
I think we shall. Sledge calls him, and he begins to open up.
Mr. Victor, did you get along with your father?
Sure. He used to slap me around a little, but what are dads for?
Oh, right. You mean like he got you in a chokehold when you were sleeping, that kind of thing?
Well, we'd horse
Someone
around.
in front here, boom, that kind of thing?
No.
Indian burn, yeah?
No,
Inspector Hammer,
Burn, that kind of thing?
no.
Objection overruled. Enough chit-chat. Mr. Victor, is it not true that you recently had a serious falling out with your father with respect to when you would take over the family business?
Well, yes.
Yes. And isn't that also true that if anything happened to your father, you would be the one to inherit everything?
Yes, that's true, but...
But, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I submit to you that this man had the opportunity, the motivation, and the means with which to kill his father, and in fact, he did it!
But I was out in the backyard pruning the roses when he was shot.
You're lying!
No, I'm not.
You're lying!
No, I'm not.
You know you're lying!
Cross my heart.
You're lying!
On my father's grave.
It seemed as if it was going so well for Sledge there.
It did for a while, but then, as you heard from the jury's reaction, not at the end, he swore on his father's grave.
Well, that's
Nobody
it.
would lie in those circumstances.
So as a last resort, Sledge tries to bribe the jury with parking ticket exemptions.
Yeah, and Trunk calls him away.
Out in the corridor, what happens?
Well, Dory says she's behind him, and Hammer says that's great, she can split the time in prison with him.
Susie then asks for a prediction, and Sledge tells her that scientists will perform a brain transplant and she will be the recipient.
Yes. She's a bit of a unfortunate character, Susie Shallow.
Sledge then discovers that the jury has taken just 39 seconds to reach a decision.
Yes, he has to go back.
That's never good, is it?
No.
If you're the accused, you want it to be dragging out quite a bit, I think.
At least a little bit, yeah. Unless it's obvious that you didn't do it.
If it was obvious you didn't do it, you probably wouldn't be on trial in the first place.
That's true.
So we go back in for the verdict.
He's found guilty. Do you remember what he says?
He offers best 3 out of 5.
He does. But when the judge mentions that he should take this seriously and it's not just a slap on the wrist, he has an epiphany.
The video could easily have been set up to make it look as if Sledge was involved, and he states that it was RC himself who could not have made it from the garden where he said he was to the study in the time that was shown.
Someone might say it's a bit late to be introducing this evidence.
Never too late, Ian. It's never.
The
too
verdict
late.
is in.
Yeah, but it's a mere technicality.
Anyway, yes, and not only that, but there's a scar on the video on the hand of the shooter that matches a scar on the hand of RC, who has an elaborate excuse.
Yeah.
He cut it shaving. But
Yeah.
slap.
He knows he's in trouble, so he grabs a cop and holds him hostage as he tries to escape, with Susie reporting directly from this mild gunfight, as she describes it.
Yeah, Hammer doesn't have his gun. He has a go at the judge for taking it from him earlier and grabs the cameraman's camera deliberately.
No,
this time.
firstly, he grabs the
Oh,
judge's
first of all,
hammer.
Yes, he throws the and then he grabs the cameraman's camera on purpose this time and throws it and takes RC down.
Yeah, and he says, for once the press came in handy.
He does.
So we're back to the precinct this week for the epilogue.
Yes, and it's just a short one, but it's quite a good one.
Yeah, what happens?
Well, Trunk and Doreau are explaining to Hammer. Well, first of all, Hammer says he could have done the time standing on his head. He's all bravado now. He didn't seem that brave in court. And they explained to him they would have had to surrender his gun. He wouldn't have been allowed it in prison, not even for visiting. And he's very upset. He thinks that's a cruel and unusual punishment.
Correct. Nice end.
That was good.
Yeah. So, that's us. Overall, thought that was a very, very fun episode. I like, when it's trying something different. We've not really seen this before. Yeah, good job.
Yep.
Thought brilliant performance by Rashi. I mean, he had to really perform in just about every...
We had to carry it, didn't he? This
He
one.
carried
It
the
was,
whole...
it was very well done. And more Trunk than we've been getting in recent weeks, so we enjoyed that.
Yeah, good to see him back. You can never have too much Trunk, unless, of course, you are an elephant. And then you might have elephantitis of the trunk.
You might trip over it.
You could do.
We'll come back to elephants next week.
Unless we forget.
No, that would be awful.
Production information, Ian. How about it?
Okay.
April 21st, 1987 was the original air date. Directed by Reza Badiai. Not sure how you pronounce that. Apologies. Reza, yeah. Badiai? Not sure. He died in 2011, aged 82. This was his first of 2 Sledgehammer episodes. He's also directed Baywatch, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Heat of the Night, Superboy, Cagney and Lacey, The Incredible Hulk, Hawaii Five-0, The Rockford Files, Beretta, and Mission Impossible, amongst others.
Decent portfolio there.
Chris Ruppenthal was involved with the teleplay and the story. He's a writer and producer who has worked on The Outer Limits, Silk Stockings, The New Adventures of Superman, and Quantum Leap. He was aided by Doug Monitor, who is credited with the story. He has written for the Police Academy TV series, the Beetlejuice TV series, Hurricanes, Sliders, and Sheldon. Guest stars this week. Did you recognise any of them?
No. Should I have?
Well, maybe I recognised the judge.
Okay.
Conchata Ferrell, or Ferrell, born in 1943. She is known these days as playing Berta in 2.5 Men, the housekeeper.
Right.
She has also been in Edward Scissorhands, True Romance, Teen Angel, L.A. Law, BJ and the Bear, lots of other things. David Sederholm played R.C. Victor. He was in The Hunt for Red October, The Prowler, Friends, Fraser, Married with Children. Ellen Blake played Mrs. Manderley. She was born in 1943 in Glasgow.
There you go.
She's been in L.A. Law, Hill Street Blues, The Waltons, Gunsmoke, and Cyphers. The fact that she was in The Waltons, etc., and Gunsmoke, I don't think she spent too much time in Glasgow.
No, I can't imagine.
Ty Andrews played Hugo Victor. He died in 2007, aged 86. He was in The Mod Squad for 123 episodes, The Detectives for 97 episodes, The Phil Silvers Show, I think he was in about 22 episodes of that, Kojak, Quincy, Murder, She Wrote. I get the feeling that this was one of the old-time actors that was perhaps a favourite of Alan Spencer.
Prolific as well.
Very prolific, yeah. Big roles there. I mean, the Detectives and the Mod Squad, I don't think were huge over here. Obviously, we've heard of them, but I'd imagine that back in the day, that was
known.
Very well known, yeah. Gerrit Graham played the prosecutor. He was born in 1949. He has been in Now and Again, Child's Play 2, The Critic, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Police Academy 6. The title of this week's episode was obviously a play on the Glenn Close 1985 movie Jagged Edge, about a man accused of killing his wife. And next week we have The Spa Who Loved Me.
Series finale.
Yeah. Any favourite lines this week?
Well, I just like that whole cross-examination of Manderley.
Yeah, that was terrific, and I think I'm going to go with the whole cross-examination of himself.
Okay.
That's us. Do you want to say anything before we head off?
Well, I'll give it the usual spiel. I think everyone will be turning off right now, fast forwarding to the next episode or whatever they do. But if you're still with us, please do take the time to come and talk to us over at sledgehammerpodcast.com, where there's a place to chat about each episode. You can get us on social media as well. We're at Sledgecast on Twitter and on Facebook. And if you have 5 minutes, we would really appreciate if you could rate and review the show on iTunes, because it makes a big difference to more people finding it, and that too would be very much appreciated.
Well, that's us.
Yep, cheerio.
Frosties.